gender. My first memory was my 6th birthday party. I invited 10 girls and 2 boys. And then first grade began, and the wall between the sexes came down. All of a sudden, girls became the other, and I felt profoundly sad. If my 6-year-old brain had adult words, it would have grieved for the loss of my friends and for the loss of a part of myself. In grade school, I was too clumsy and kind to be macho, and I paid the price in bruises. I formed a hard outer shell, but at the same time, discovered this desire to try on my mom's clothes. It was the lost feminine part of myself looking for a voice. I continued to occasionally try on women's clothes, alone and with shame, until my mid-20s. And then I just began to discover myself, and I decided if I was going to dress like this, that I was going to look at the feelings underneath. And what I discovered was that as a man, I saw myself and I was seen as a producer, as a machine, as a protector. And I longed to say to the world, I am a work of art. Honor my flow and my feelings. I am a fairy, I am a rainbow, I am an angel. I seek to be sought after and not always be the seeker. I looked at the world around me and I saw that women had room for gender exploration and men did not. Once I walked into a department store and I remember looking at the women's side looking like a veritable bird of paradise. And the men's side, all the color diversity of a coal mine. But I discovered that if I shopped in the women's section in certain ways, I could dress creatively and still pass as a man. So at that point, I began to dress like this. Dressing is always less elegant than we imagine. When I was 32, I had a dream. There were 2 cliffs, 6 feet across from each other. One was pink and one was blue. And the chasm between them was as deep as the Grand Canyon. And I dug my hands into one cliff and my feet into the other, and I pulled them together with the force of my body. I continued to dress androgynously, but I longed for a fuller expression of the feminine side of myself. Until in 1992, after a number of years of inspiring Halloween drag experiences, I decided to do an experiment. And I cross-dressed for the entire month of October. And I had an epiphany. I was not a cross-dresser. I was not a transvestite. My goal was not to be seen as a woman, but my goal was to be the unique, fluctuating combination of masculine and feminine that I was. At that point, there was like no name for what I was doing. It is hard to do something that does not have a name. And yet I chose parts of my life that were safe enough to explore, and in those places, I dressed like this. Was sometimes joy and appreciation, like I've had here. Sometimes it was distance, and sometimes it was outright hatred. But I didn't let that stop me. Until in 2002, I worked at a very public job for an intentional community, and I got a lot of flack with how I dressed. Interestingly enough, it wasn't just for being feminine, but it was for not being hip enough. I wasn't an earth mama, I wasn't urban chic. The truth is, I have the aesthetic, and in some ways maybe the soul, of a 12-year-old girl who watches too many Disney movies. And now I happen to like that about myself. But at the time, I let this criticism drive me partway back into the closet for 10 years. Last year, for the first time, I heard the term gender fluid. It was the first label that really ever fit me. And I considered coming out all the way this time. When I thought about the clothing choices, I went back and forth between my fears and my freedom. But when I thought about identity, it was clear. Society sees the world in two genders, and this time, I refuse to choose it. And so I declare to the world, I am gender fluid. So now sometimes I dress like this, and sometimes I dress like this, and sometimes I dress like this. I've discovered some things. I found for the first time in my life, I could really shake my ass. I found that all of a sudden, sexiness is not outside of me anymore, but sometimes I can go out on the dance floor and I can feel like the sexiest thing on the dance floor. It's in here. And I found that I feel feminine and strangely also more masculine than I ever have before. Growing, evolving, changing. This is me.